Hi, my name is Jaycee Choi, and I am a Jungian Typology enthusiast as well as an Enneagram enthusiast. I also have a series going on right now on productivity because I am an Enneagram type 3, which I love to tell everyone because I'm a 3. Anyway, so this is my tea time. So I have the same tea that I have every single time I record these videos. I'm starting to have like a Pavlov response to this tea. Like if I drink it just casually, like I start thinking about typology, which is fine. I'm usually thinking about it anyway. But anyway, to get started, so this video is on extroverted sensing, and I want to talk about this function in every single position of the valued stack. So 8 different types value this function, and I'm going to go through the dominant, auxiliary, tertiary, and inferior that have SE in that valued spot. So to begin with, firstly, if you haven't seen my video, yeah, I know I hate plugs, whatever, but if you haven't seen my video on SE, like an overview, maybe go watch that first. But extroverted sensing is the dominant function of ESTPs as well as ESFPs. And just like a one sentence description of SE is kind of like, it has to do with like being very in touch with the physical environment. So it's like external physical. So something that people always say about SE DOMs is that like anything they use with their hands is like an extension of their body. So like they're really good with their hands. They can woodwork really well typically, or they can like build computers or like fix your car, or they love getting your oil changed, or yeah. So ESTPs and ESFPs, this is their first function. And the way that I would describe it is that like they are always living in the moment. Like if you ask them to recall something from the past, they like can't or won't. And if you ask them to think about the future, they don't necessarily care too much. So like, and this is of course stereotypically, you know, obviously there are SE DOMs who can think about the past and the future, like anyone can, but stereotypically, like they're so in the moment. Like there's nothing like awkward about an SE DOM in my opinion, like nothing. They can pick up on body language really easily. Like they know exactly like how you are feeling basically. Like if your foot moves towards the door, they're like, oh, do you want to leave? And like for me, I had to like learn that kind of stuff, but them it's like innate, like they know it. So like they're like, are you uncomfortable? Like they know. And like SE loves everything about like the physical. So typically you can see them and identify them. This is almost a joke, but like you can identify an SE DOM immediately if within like 10 minutes of being with someone, they start dancing at some point in your conversation. They're an SE DOM, or that's their second function. Like full stereotype, yes, like SE DOMs love to just like move their bodies. Like they usually can dance really well. They're the type where like nothing looks awkward when they do anything with their body. Compared to me, I do anything with my body and I look so awkward. SE DOM, like me, I could like lean my head on my like hand and I can look awkward. But like SE DOMs, they're just so like comfortable in their bodies. So like I guess again stereotypically, like high SE users are like athletes, stuff like that. So anything that has to do with like being in touch with the physical environment. Like I had this one ESFP friend, when I would be on the phone with him, I would be usually like in my bed with the light off with my eyes closed while we're talking. And for him, he's like in his bed with his eyes open with the light on. And I'm like, why? He's like, why are you doing that? And I was like, okay. And actually like after a while, it made perfect sense. Like SE DOM versus NE DOM, you know, like I don't understand it, but he didn't understand me either, but it's interesting. So that's like kind of like baseline, I guess. That's like the dominant function SE. And then you go down into auxiliary function SE. So that's ISTPs as well as ISFPs. So in these types, usually they are in very much touch with their physical environment, but it's first filtered, you know, through their introverted judging function, either TI or FI. So it's a little more muted, I would say, because like SE DOMs tend to be really loud, again, stereotypically, but if it's in their second function, then they tend to use it a little bit differently. Stereotypically, again, athletes, you know, good chefs maybe, or just like, you know, that kind of stuff. They dance too, but like usually they're a little more like, I wouldn't say shy, but a little muted. It's like SE DOM, but like muted. And it's really interesting, just like the amount of things that they notice in their physical environment. Like if someone's gonna notice like that you got a haircut or something, it's gonna be an SE user. Like, and they're usually like unabashedly, they can compliment you on physical things. Like if someone's like, hey, nice hair today, or nice shirt, or nice jacket, like for me, I usually notice it's like a high SE user, and usually like in the second spot. And then as you move further down the list, there is ENFJ and ENTJ. They have SE in their third position. So again, it's a little more muted in that sense, but I would call it, once you get to that point of they notice a lot of physical things in their environment, but they don't work really hard to change it. So if it's in like a higher position, SE notices something and then like it feels free to like change the perception on it. So like if they notice that someone's like in the corner of the room, right? They might get up in that person's face, or they might somehow lure that person into like the middle of the room, compared to if it's lower down in someone's stack, they might notice and then they don't care, or like they won't do anything about it. So I kind of describe that in a similar way with my FE. So I can notice when someone's uncomfortable, but I either don't have the power to change it or I don't care enough to change it, compared to someone with FE higher in their stack, like will try to change it or they will change it because they're good at it, right? So it's a little bit weaker for ENJs, obviously, because it's in their third position, but they use it in tandem with their extroverted judging function. So it's interesting seeing a TE and an SE user, because a TE SE user, so an ENTJ, because a lot of people describe this type as like the most intimidating, like extrovert thinker, like ET type, because they have like two functions that are really like forceful. And in that, like, they don't cross boundaries necessarily, but they're like definitely like strong, and they like stand up for themselves. And like SE is like really not shy. That's how I would describe it. It's like very like assertive. So having TE, which is like effective and like businessman, and then like SE, which is like assertive, macho man, it's like you get like an ultimate like power boss sort of thing. And like I love ENTJs, so this isn't actually a shade thing. This is like an admiration thing. Yeah, so similar thing with ENFJs though. Actually, I find it interesting for ENFJs because their NI can project into the future of what might be good, like what might happen, and then they can use like their SE to actually get it done. It's like, in this moment right now, what should I do to help it? So in a way, the SE of an ENFJ kind of reminds me a little bit of TE, which is like interesting, and I would like to go into the differences as well, like in another video. And then finally, SE in the inferior position, it's in INFJs as well as INTJs. Since it's in the inferior position, it's like the weakest. However, since they value it, they still value SE things, so being in the moment or whatever. But considering that NI is their first function, they tend to be in their heads a lot more. But when they actually decide to act on something, a lot of times it's like physical. So when they are deciding to like change something in their life, I usually find that it's like a physical thing. So first, before they do anything, they change their physical environment. So like they'll clean their room maybe, or they'll go work out, and then they start like doing things, you know? So I feel like for INJs, it's usually like a physical thing that they do in order to kickstart themselves into mental things. So that's how I find that it like comes into play, which is like kind of reminds me of like dual seeking in socionics. Actually, I'm gonna drop that, ignore that. I'll go into that a lot later, because I realized I was talking about MBTI, not socionics. But if you want to learn about that later, come back for more. That's terrible, I'm sorry, ignore this whole thing. But anyway, yeah, so that's how SE, Extroverted Sensing, kind of looks like in each value position in the stack. So again, in the dominant, auxiliary, tertiary, and inferior. So if you have any questions on anything, feel free to leave a comment. I'll try to answer you or make a video or something in response. And thank you for joining me again, and I will see you next time. Bye.